All right. Well, I think I'm on live. Hopefully my mic is not muted. So welcome everyone. My name is Lior Samfiru. By the way, Stephanie, my screen says that my mic is muted. So can you just make sure it's not? My name is Lior Samfiru. I'm one of the founding partners of Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. I am the head of the employment law practice at the firm. We are the biggest employment law firm in Canada, and the reason why I am here is I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to tell you what you need to know about your workplace rights. I'm here to tell you all those issues that you have bothering you. I'm here to tell you what the answers are. So if you're dealing with a workplace issue, if you're dealing with a workplace problem, ultimatum, vaccine issue, maybe you lost your job, maybe you're being bullied or harassed, mistreated in the workplace, you want to know what to do, you've been put on a leave of absence, you want to know what to say, ask the question. We are live, I'm here to answer questions. So if you're watching this right now, what a great opportunity you have to ask questions, to put in that question, type it, and I'll answer it. And you can walk away with all the information that you need in order to make sure that you understand your rights. Now, let me give you some other contact information. If you want to reach out to me to have a private chat, offline, off social media, easy. All you do is you go to employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. You'll see all the contact information there, phone number, email address, everything you need is right there so that we can connect and then you can get answers to your solution. So when we're done here, doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. Still available, still want to answer your questions, so don't hesitate to ask. But right now I'm live. I'm going to start answering questions right now. So for those joining us, welcome. My name is Lior Samfiru. I'm the employment lawyer, and I'm here to answer all your questions about your workplace rights. All right, so first question today, and thank you, comes on Facebook from Eric. If as an unvaccinated person, non-union, I refuse to test myself twice a week, working from home as required, and I will be put on an unpaid, can this be treated as a dismissal from work without cause? Can I still get my severance package, vacation pay, etc.? So in most cases, Eric, yes, if you refuse to get a regular COVID test, you are still going to be entitled to severance. Now, there may be exceptions in situations where you're working in healthcare, for example. Given the nature of that job, sure, there may be more flexibility. But in most other jobs, ultimately, if you refuse to have regular COVID tests, and because of that, you are put on a leave of absence, you can treat that leave of absence as a termination of your employment. We call that a constructive dismissal, and then you can pursue your severance, get your full severance. Depending how long you work there, that could be as much as 24 months pay. So absolutely yes. Now, the reality here, Eric, is that your employer is not just going to say, here's severance, thank you. We're going to have to get involved. Okay, we're going to have to get involved to make sure that you get what you're owed. And you see, by the way, the address here. If you want to go find out how much your severance is, you can go to use our severance calculator. But if you've decided you want to treat your employment as being at an end, or if you've actually been let go, contact us. We'll help you do that. Thank you. Next question today is from Zoraida. How long the employee can be in modified work? I'm not sure what you mean. If it's modified work based on your doctor's orders, you can be as long as your doctor tells you, or as long as the doctor says you need to be on modified work, the company has to accommodate. So not sure exactly if that's what you're asking. Next question comes from Mercedes. What you're providing is a great tool. Is your severance calculator for unionized employees? No. So nothing we talk about, Mercedes, here applies to unionized employees. Nothing. Everything we talk about only applies to non-union employees. Really, unionized employees don't really get severance. Okay, so that's a concept for non-union employees. If you're a unionized employee and you have a workplace issue, the only one allowed to help you is your union. You can't speak to me. You can't hire me. You can't hire another lawyer. It has to be the union. So unfortunately, whatever you hear today only applies to non-union employees. It does not apply to unionized employees. Okay. So Zoraida confirms that it's a doctor's note. So Zoraida, if you have a doctor's note saying that you need modified duties, your employer has to keep you on modified duties as long as your doctor says you need it. Now, as long as it's possible, your employer has to do that, okay? Now, if at some point it becomes impossible for your employer to accommodate you, there's no more possibility, there's no more modified work, maybe then they can stop it. But that's very difficult for the employer to show. They do have to accommodate even if it's difficult, okay? So if your employer refuses to accommodate you or says, I'm only gonna accommodate you for this long, contact me, okay? Sometimes I can just give them a kick in the pants and that solves the issue, okay? So that's the answer there. I think I'm caught up on questions right now, guys. Ask your questions. If you want to know more about your workplace rights, this is the time to ask your questions. And we see some more questions coming. Next one is from Kevin. My employer wants to change my job because it is being phased out. Can I request my severance? Also, I understand I would get more because of the pandemic, but isn't this an employee market? So, Kevin, it's a question of how much or what kind of a change are they making. So, for example, if they say, instead of using machine 1, you're going to use machine 2, that's not enough of a change. But if it's a significant change, if it's a change that could be seen as a demotion, or it's going to impact your compensation, or it's going to impact your hours of work, that could be what we call a constructive dismissal, and means you are entitled to severance. So absolutely. So I would need to understand what kind of a change and how it's going to impact you. It's not every single change that allows you to say that's constructive dismissal. It has to be a more significant change, but you absolutely have that option, especially if it's a demotion. And now in terms of severance, our courts have found that if because of the pandemic it's more difficult to find another job, if you can show that it's made it more difficult, then you're going to be entitled to even more severance than usual. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Guys, ask your questions. My name is Lior Samfiru. For those joining us, I'm the employment lawyer. I'm here live answering your questions about your workplace rights, about employment law. So ask them. Next question is from Larissa. How can a home care company not allow testing when we were supposed to be offered this? So now they put me on an unpaid leave for 30 days till I comply with getting the vaccine. I work from home for 2 years. I was never client related. I was office staff. So Larissa, the question is not how can they, because they've done it and you can't prevent that. What that means though is that you can treat this leave of absence as a termination of your employment, because they don't have a right to do that, because they don't have the ability to require you to get vaccinated or else. The fact that they put you on a leave of absence means you have the right, you have the choice, if you want, to treat that as a termination. We call that constructive dismissal. That means they have to pay you severance. So remember, there's no way to physically stop your employer from doing something. But if they're doing something they're not supposed to, you can treat that as a termination and get severance. So Larissa, you have two options. Option one is you do what your employer says, or you wait to see what happens. Option number two is you can choose to treat that as a termination. If that's what you want to do, contact me. Let's get that going. And to contact me, you simply go to employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. Phone number is there. Email address is there. Everything is there you need to contact me. Okay, so Larissa, those are the options. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing something here. Next question from Deborah. If you get ill after the mandated vaccine, can you get WCB? No, you cannot. Carol says, can terms and conditions of employment be changed? Example, they added that they can terminate if do not comply with vaccination. Well, they can't terminate without compensation, and an employer, if you decide not to get vaccinated, has to pay you severance, has to pay you compensation if they let you go, as long as there's no government mandate in place. So don't ever agree to that. So your employer cannot unilaterally change terms of employment, and you should never agree to give up your severance. Severance could be months and months pay, it could be tens of thousands of dollars. Okay, so simply don't agree to that. If any issues, contact me. Next question is from David on Facebook. Non-union privately owned company suspended without pay for 2 weeks now. I refused to get an mRNA vaccine as my father had a heart attack. In researching these vaccines, there is no way the treatment causes less damage than COVID. So you only have two options, David. Option number one is you wait and see if they call you back to work. They may or they may not. And if they do, it could be months from now. That's option one. Option number two is you can treat this layoff or this leave as a termination. So you wait, option one. Option two is you make the decision that by putting me on this leave, you've terminated my employment. And now, employer, you have to pay me severance. So that's an option that you have. You can do that right now. If that's what you want to do, contact me, okay? Go to employmentlawyer.ca. You see that on the screen below. And you'll have my phone number there, my email address. We can connect. We can get started on this. It's not even a complicated process. But those are really, there's no third option. Option one, you wait. Option number two, you decide to say enough is enough. I'm going to treat this as a termination and get severance. Larissa says, I was denied unemployment after being terminated November the 30th. Well, unemployment and being terminated November 30th. Well, you need to contact me. We need to get you a record of employment that allows you to get EI, not hard to do, and we need to get you severance. So there's nothing that you're going to be able to do on your own, unfortunately, on that. You have to contact us. You see the phone number on the screen right now, or just as easy, go to employmentlawyer.ca. The phone number is right there. Emails there. There's forms you can fill out. You can also learn a lot more there about your workplace rights. So don't stress out over it. Don't lose sleep. Don't be frustrated. Contact us and let us do what we do. Next question on Facebook from Anna. If my employer says I have to come back to the office, but I've been working from home all this time, can I request to still be working from home? I don't want the vaccination. So your employer, if we put the vaccination issue aside, your employer can require you to come back to the office, okay? Even if you've been working remotely, your employer is able to say, now I want you to be back in the office. From my perspective, my employer can say, we're safe enough. So that's fine. And if you don't go back, that's a resignation. But if the employer says you have to come back and get the vaccine, if you choose not to get the vaccine, and that's why you lose your job, you'd be owed severance, but you will lose your job. And for Anna and everyone else, you have to understand that you will lose your job if your employer decides to, if you don't get the vaccine, you will lose it, okay? But you would be owed severance. Anna, so that's what you can do. If your employer says you get the vaccine or you're gone, they will let you go, but you'd be owed severance. To get that severance, contact me and we'll make that happen, okay? Those joining us, my name is Lior Samfiru. I'm the employment lawyer, one of the founding partners of Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. We operate in Ontario, BC, and Alberta. I'm here answering your questions. Ask them. We have plenty of time for you to ask, so I'm going to continue answering right now. Next question on Facebook from Amanda. I was let go from my job due to not getting this vaccine. I worked in a union office. They put me on paper that I resigned. So yes, it's upsetting, but the only one that can fight for this, Amanda, is your union. They can file a grievance to actually try to get you your job back with back pay, but that's the only one that can do anything is the union. If you're unionized, you have no other options other than going through the union. Next question on YouTube from Hope. Why are religious exemptions being denied even with a letter from your pastor? Doesn't the charter section 2, 7, and 15 apply? No, the charter does not apply. Charter only applies to government action, does not apply to business. What applies is the Human Rights Code, human rights legislation. So if you have a letter from a religious leader in your community and your employer says, we don't care about that, yeah, that could be a human rights violation. Nothing at all to do with the charter, but it's a human rights violation which may entitle you to damages. So again, not only would you be owed severance if you lose your job, Hope, potentially human rights damages as well. So you really want to contact me if you find yourself in that situation. But very important, I've heard a lot of people talk about the charter. The charter does not apply. Okay, the Charter of Rights only applies to government action. Does not apply to a business, a private business. So as a business can never breach the charter because the charter doesn't apply. There's other requirements and legal obligations, but it's not the charter. Next question is from Darren. Is it legal to ask for your vaccine status in a job interview? Well, arguably, it's not legal to refuse to hire someone because they're not vaccinated. So if your employer doesn't hire you because you're not vaccinated, that could be a human rights violation. It's going to be difficult to prove, and you're going to have to fight that. I don't know how practical that is, but there's the answer. Okay. Next question on YouTube from P4WZ. I have a temporary medical exemption from my doctor. I have told my company, they told me to wait for further details, but we have other staff, non-vaxxed, allowed in due to them being essential. Again, ultimately, here are your options. You can wait and see what happens, or you can treat this situation as a termination of your employment. By not allowing you to work when clearly you could be, your employer has essentially terminated your employment, and now you can require them to pay you severance. So it's not about fairness. It's not about can they, because they're doing it already. It's a question of what you can do. What are your options? Option one is do what they want you. Option number two is to treat this as a termination. If that's what you want to do, I've said this before, contact me as soon as possible. You just simply go to employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. Next question. Ask yours, guys. We still have some time, so please ask your questions. Next question is from David Carr on Facebook. I was told 2 months ago that as of November 2nd, I would no longer be allowed on the property. On October 25th, I came in contact with a fellow employee that tested positive for COVID. The employer sent me home to isolate. Health Canada called me and said I was good to go back to work. Employer told me to turn in workplace keys, and now HR department will not return my calls. I made myself clear I will not quit. Well, you've been terminated, so it's not a quitting. You've been terminated. That's done. Now you simply can get severance. So there's nothing you can do vis-a-vis your employer or your employment status. You've been terminated, David. Now it's time to get your severance. So to get severance, contact me. I don't know how long you've worked there or your job, but you could be owed many months pay, up to 2 years pay, 24 months. You want to contact me, employmentlawyer.ca, but I wouldn't wait on this, okay? Employmentlawyer.ca. From Quantum Energy on YouTube. What can I do if I have a high risk to make blood clots, but my doctor recommended me to get the vaccine, and my union requested proof of 2-shot vaccine, but I'm scared to do that? There's not much that you can do if you're part of a union. If you don't do what your employer says, you will lose your job. And if your union won't help you, there's no other recourse, okay? So push your union as best as possible, but that's the only option that's available if you're a unionized employee. It would be very different, that you would have other rights and options in a non-union situation, but as a unionized employee, those are the options. Next question is from Michelle on Facebook. My employer refused my accommodation request, citing undue hardship. How do I know if my request is not reasonable? What are my options and the pros and cons of each? I was considering resubmitting my request and see what happens. So it's tough for me to say, not knowing what your accommodation request is, what your limitations are. If your limitations are very extensive, then it may be reasonable. It's very difficult for an employer to say, oh God, this is too hard. It's undue hardship. But I can't answer without knowing what those restrictions are. Obviously, the bigger the company, the more they're expected to be able to do. So this may be a situation, Michelle, where we should have a private chat so I can understand what your limitations are, what your doctor's note says, what the company has said, and I can advise you accordingly. Next question is from Ian. How are employers legally discriminating based on vaccine status during the hire process? They're not legally doing it. Absolutely not. Next question is from Eric on Facebook, or Eric. In these cases, what are the costs to fight to be able to collect work benefits, unemployment, etc.? I can tell you that most of our cases are on a contingency basis because a lot of our clients are not able to afford to pay on an hourly basis. So because of that, most of our cases are on a contingency basis. From TM on YouTube. Is this all over when the federal government withdraws the mandate that Canadian workers get vaccinated? So there's no mandate like that. The federal government has issued a mandate for certain employees that work for the federal government, certain core departments of the federal government. So otherwise there's no mandate, okay? In Ontario, for example, the provincial government has implemented a mandate for long-term care home employees. And every province has some minor mandates, but that's it. There's no federal mandate that applies to everyone. Next question is from Sparks on YouTube. I worked for the city of Toronto, and they're threatened to terminate me with cause if I don't get vaccinated. They cannot terminate you for cause. If you are terminated, again, assuming you're not part of a union. If you're not part of a union and they terminate you, even though they may say it's cause, it's not, and you're going to be owed severance, you have to contact me, of course, to get that and to get your EI. So the fact that they're saying they're doing that doesn't mean that they're able legally to do that, okay? And many employers are saying, we're going to terminate you for cause. No, it's not up to the employer to decide if it's cause. The law decides that. And for most employees, if there's no government mandate, if you choose not to be vaccinated and you lose your job, that's not a for-cause termination. That's a without cause termination, meaning you're owed your full severance, okay? Those joining us, first of all, welcome. My name is Lior Samfiru. I'm the employment lawyer, and I'm here to answer your questions. So that's what you need to do right now. Ask your question, type it in, press return, and I'll answer it. Spark says, what are my options? So I just answered that. You can absolutely get your severance. It's not a for-cause termination. Next question is from Mike. Is there a general formula that can be used to determine how much severance an employee would be entitled to? Well, I'm going to tell you how to find out right now. Just go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Again, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. You see that right here on the screen below me. We have our severance calculator tool there. You can answer 3 questions and you can find out in seconds how much severance you are owed. Okay? It's free, completely free. It's anonymous, completely anonymous. Easy to use, takes seconds. You don't have to put in your name, the company's name, no credit card information, nothing. It's the easiest, fastest way to find out now how much severance you're owed. Even if you haven't lost your job, but you're worried that you're about to. Or maybe you're just curious. Hey, what would I be owed if one day I lost my job? Just go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Again, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. First thing you'll see there is our severance calculator tool. Just use that, find out, easy peasy, okay? Next question is from Lauren. Lauren says on Facebook, I've been out on an unpaid leave as of tomorrow. First for 2 days and second for 5 days. They said it's because they want to give me time to reconsider my decision not to get vaccinated. I told them this wasn't legal. They said to take it up with HR. Well, you can certainly take it up with HR. If they keep you on a leave, you can choose to treat that as a termination and get severance, okay? But to do that, you'll have to contact me. And again, employmentlawyer.ca, you see that address on the bottom of the screen. So you're entitled to severance. Let's see. Next question from David on Facebook. My employer was guiding me towards doing a duty to accommodate to a medical condition. I have vascular damage in my leg from a previous infection that increases my risk of blood clots. My doctor provided a note stating I had the infection, but it was denied. What did I do wrong? So first of all, obviously, I haven't seen the note. The note should have said that you can't get the vaccine for medical reasons. The note doesn't even have to say what the medical reason is. Just that there's a medical reason that prevents you from being able to get the vaccine. If you have that and your employer says, too bad, we don't care, that's a human rights violation. Then that's the employer doing something wrong, not you. So if your employer denies a proper doctor's note when it comes to vaccine, not only is that something that entitles you to severance, it also entitles you to human rights damages. But again, to contact me to help you do that, to help you get what you're owed. Human rights violation, severance, wrongful dismissal, constructive dismissal, just go to employmentlawyer.ca. See that on the screen right there, employmentlawyer.ca to connect with me, my team, phone number, email address, it's all there. Hope says, I'm unionized, so if I'm let go, are you able to help with severance? No, no lawyer can, and you don't really get severance as a unionized employee. You could potentially get your job back, but it has to be the union. You can never hire me, or you can never hire another lawyer ever. It has to be the union, okay? Let's see, next question. From from Sandra. RPN terminated from Guelph Hospital for just cause due to non-compliance with the vaccination policy. I'm a recently recovered COVID-19 person, asked to go back to work the next day, then an unpaid leave. QP union filed for a grievance on my part, but is not sure if they can win. What can I do next? There's nothing that you can do next. The only thing you can do is to have your union pursue your grievance. Because you're unionized, the only recourse, zero other, the only recourse is to have your union do what it's done. Okay? Can they win? I think they can. In fact, there's a very recent case, a union decision, arbitration decision, where the union won, and the arbitrator said, no, it's not reasonable to impose mandatory vaccine. So that's the only recourse that's available if you're part of a union. Next question on Facebook from Timea Varga. Hopefully I'm not mispronouncing. EI denied me, saying I'm not taking the vaccine, and that's misconduct. Well, the problem is it's because you had an improper record of employment that you submitted to EI. So we need to get you another record of employment, and we also need to get you severance. To do that, you have to contact me. We need a new record of employment. You will reapply for EI. You will get EI, and you'll also be owed severance. But you have to contact me again, employmentlawyer.ca. You see the address, employmentlawyer.ca. We have a few more minutes. I'll take a couple more questions. So next question is from Randy. People should share this lawyer with every social media. Thank you for that, Randy. I appreciate it. Next question, let's see. Next question is from Elizabetta. They put me on a leave of absence from the 15th of November until the 31st of January. I had cancer, waiting for varicose vein surgery, although the doctor refused a letter of exemption. So if they put you on a leave of absence, you only have two options. You can wait to see what happens and whether they'll bring you back. Absolutely, that's option one. Or you can choose to treat that leave of absence as a termination of your employment. Regardless of what your doctor said, you can choose to treat that as a termination. If that's what you want to do, contact me as soon as possible. From Josie, next question. Is the only thing an employee entitled to is severance for not getting the vaccine? Is no way to keep the job? I assume severance after only a year or two of work is not enough to survive for any length of time. So a couple things. No, you cannot force your employer to take you back, and there's no legal mechanism to force your employer to take you back or to keep your job. That may be available to unionized employees. It's not available to non-union employees. But don't assume that just because you work for a year or two, you're not going to get a lot of severance. Even after a year, depending on your age and your job, you could easily be owed 6 months' pay, okay, even after a year. So I'm just now about to negotiate a severance package for a 2-year employee where we're negotiating 10 months' pay. So don't assume that just because you're a short service employee, you're not going to be owed much. Okay, if you're working part-time once a week at Starbucks, minimum wage, and you work there for 6 months, you're not going to be owed much, maybe a couple of weeks' pay. But for most other individuals, yeah, you could be owed months and months' pay, even as a short service employee. Okay, last questions. We have from Jungle Girl on YouTube. We have to pay for antigen testing at work. They will bill us at the end of the month. Do I have to pay it? Well, you don't, but you will likely lose your job if you don't. Now, when you lose your job, you will be owed severance, but you will lose your job. So you have to decide ultimately what is better. Is it better to pay it and continue working, or is it better not to pay it, lose your job, and get severance? Only you can answer that, but those are the options that are available to you. Guys, that's the time that we have for this week, but I'm going to be shutting off my webcam here, and I'm going to get back to work answering questions, answering emails, talking to people on the phone. So if you have a question, if there's something you want to discuss with me privately, not going anywhere, the team not going anywhere. Now, we're a bit behind in getting back to people. We have literally thousands of people contacting us every week from across the country. We will get back to everyone, okay? Sometimes email may be the fastest way to contact us. Go to employmentlawyer.ca to do that, okay? Thank you very much for joining today. I know there's a lot of questions, a lot of stress. Hopefully I've answered some of those concerns today. Contact me. Don't wait till next week when I'm back. Let's have a chat much sooner than that. Go to employmentlawyer.ca. My name is Lior Samfiru. Always a privilege to be here with you. Thank you.